Yeah, this is the first time I've ever used one of these. Feels strange. My skin looks blotchy, very blotchy. Um, I need a shave. Yeah, so I don't know where I'm looking at. If I'm looking, I guess there. Um, I thought I'd make a video. Um, um, just to kind of discuss certain things regarding writing. Everyone seems to sort of have vlogs these days. Um, so I thought, I'm kind of hip, so I'll make a vlog or whatever this is and upload it to YouTube, and then put links on sort of social media. Their second journal is out soon, the end of October 2017, literally a year after the first one. And it's strange. I kind of the first journal I was I've got a copy. I'll show it. And the first journal I was proud of. It was the culmination of 2 years worth of writing, several months worth of editing of all my prose, 90,000 words. And when I published it last year, I felt very, very proud that I had something there to show for my efforts. But when it came out, it was kind of strange because I immediately, for me, when I kind of write something and publish it on the blog, it's old, and it kind of it's just old. And so when I published the first book, the first volume of Damn Lovers, it immediately, from the very first day, it kind of felt old. And so therefore I kind of, although I was proud of it, I just felt kind of disappointed because it wasn't like what I was doing. It wasn't what I was doing right there and then. So the second journal I feel a lot more excited about, because the second journal is a lot more up to date. It captures where my writing is at the present moment. It captures my frame of mind, my mindset, my kind of visions, I guess. The first journal was written. It starts with me kind of um, lovesick, pining after a certain woman who shall remain nameless, and 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 it kind of went on from there, and writing took over, and I went on I was writing abstract shit, and my dad was ill, he had cancer, and that kind of my mindset, my frame of mind wasn't sort of that great. He got better, which was great, and it's just this journey of my mindset over the course of 2 years, from being in love, from being out of love, and seeing where my writing followed that. There were highs and lows, and at the end of the first journal, I feel like I've sort of found my voice. I feel like through all these trials and tribulations, and through writing so much over the course of 2 years, I finally felt that I'd kind of found my writing voice. I'd kind of found this way of writing that enabled me to mix reality and unreality, and dreams and memories. But I only really achieved that right at the end of the first journal. So again, it was bittersweet, because it was just when it got good, the first journal ended. Which is why I feel so excited about the second journal. It kind of feels like, look at that, look at those bags, fucking hell. So I feel really excited about the second journal. I kind of feel like it's where I hit the ground running. And for me, I think, in terms of, if I had to describe my writing to someone that didn't kind of, that had never read my stuff, or even just to try and describe it to people that had, um, my writing is it's I was thinking about this earlier on. I think for me, and I guess this it kind of applies to everyone, I guess. But for me, writing is when I sit down and write, I want to write my truth, and my truth might not be the truth, but it's my truth. It's again, whenever I sit down and write, I get into a mindset, a frame of mind, and for me, there are kind of no boundaries between what's real, what's not, the future, the past, the present, memories. I embellish stuff. So yeah, when I sit down, I kind of feel like there are all of these doors that kind of just open, and my writing is kind of it captures my journey. I kind of feel like a bit of a kind of a magician in that sense. So for me, I kind of when I sit down, I kind of just feel like I do as I please in a sense, and that's why I love writing because for me, the real world kind of reality, yeah, it's kind of it's based on money and it's based on social standing and people judge you on careers and if you've got a good mortgage and all of this. And ever since I was a kid, that kind of never really appealed to me. Kind of found it boring. I remember sort of being a kid and people saying, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was like, well, I don't want to just work for the rest of my life. I don't want to sort of work to earn money and to get a mortgage. Yeah, I just wanted to be creative. I really wanted to be creative. And look at that, look at those bags and those lines. I really wanted to be creative, and I can't even remember what I was talking about. I do this. I digress a hell of a lot, and I confuse myself, and I trip up. Um, but so yeah, so for me, writing is kind of my truth, and it's always what I've wanted to do to express myself and to express how I see things and to to kind of just think, you kind of get one life, and I think that for me, it's so important to kind of just be yourself, to be who you want to be. I know that's kind of, it's easier said than done at times, but I kind of find that that's I should be looking at it at there. I think that you should be who you want to be, and I think that my writing is that. For me, when I sit down and write, and in the second journal, I'm I'm just me. I think there's the good me, there's the bad me. Um, my writing in the second journal touches upon good moments, happy moments that have happened, happy moments that I've kind of imagined, and there's also kind of there's there's unpleasant moments, there's downers. But again, I think it's your truth. Why kind of why sanitize who you are? Why sanitize your vision? Why try and present an image to the world that isn't you? And that kind of pisses me off when people I guess we all do it. I do it, when I put stuff on Facebook and Instagram, I'm trying to present an image to the world of who I am. And but I always want to try and be honest, be truthful, and not kind of try and show myself as being this like really positive person. And I don't like positive people. They piss me off, and people that are just constantly striving for to be healthy and to be fit and fuck off. I think it's just be who you are. If who you are is lazy, it's angry, if you're a daydreamer, if you're boring, whatever, just be who you want to be. And I think the second journal, I think the first journal kind of led up to me trying to figure out who I was, trying to figure out what my voice was, and the second journal is me being who I am, and it's kind of exciting to kind of think that it's going to be out there. There's just going to be this book that's going to capture me being who I am, and it's a nice feeling to kind of feel like that I have a record of that. And again, I'm no Shakespeare, but I think I've improved as a writer. over the past sort of, kind of 3 4 years. I was writing before that. I was working on a novel, but it was on and off, and it was a wrong sort of decision to try and sort of just go to the novel first. I needed to work from the bottom up, and again, I've been blogging. I've got the first journal, the second journal, and yeah, I feel like I've approached this point where I've found my voice, and it's a nice feeling. It's a strange voice. My writing isn't for everyone, but again, for me, that's the beauty of it, isn't it? That you can that you have a voice, that you have a vision, and it is I hopefully my voice and my vision is different. I think it is. I've not tried to make it different. I think it's naturally come about that way. Like I said, though, I'm not the world's greatest writer. Um, None of us are, but I think I've improved. The first journal was too abstract in places. When I look through it now, I kind of some of the stuff I wrote, I think, oh fuck, it's just too out there. Whereas the second journal, I've reined it in, and I think I've got a good balance. I think that to coin or to quote Sid Barrett, the Pink Floyd founder, I have a bit of an irregular head, and I mean this head, not the rude head. That would just be terrible, especially on YouTube. But no, I have an irregular head, and I kind of think it's trying to capture that, trying to put it into words. How I see the world is I didn't quite nail it in the first journal. Sometimes I did it well. Other times it was out there, and even when I read that stuff, it's not. I don't know what the fuck I was on about. But the second journal, I think I've managed to to nail it. I think I've managed to get that balance where I can be very serious and very kind of honest, but then at the same time I can be out there and a little bit kooky, but there's always that decent balance. And I think it's a lot more um I can't think of the word. It's a lot more accessible than the first journal. But when I say accessible, I don't mean it's watered down. I just think I've improved as a writer, and so therefore I think that the writing itself is a lot more. It's easier to get into without me sacrificing the vision. The very first piece in the second journal is called "Life Is a Fear." And I took the title from a song by The Editors, one of my favorite bands. And that is again, it's just straight out there. It's odd. It's a very sexual piece. It's a violent piece. But then the next piece that follows is I can't remember what it's called, but it's a memory of when I was at university, and again I just love this whole kind of this melting pot. It's that again there's honest, poignant moments, and there are darker moments. It's it's an interesting process. I think we all would say that. I obviously would say that. Everyone that writes or paints or creates that has a vision, we all feel that our vision is worth listening to. It's worth reading. So I'm no different from that. But I feel that the second journal is I'm pleased with it. I genuinely think that I'm doing something that is. I've just noticed you can see a can of Red Bull. I shouldn't really drink them. I've been told off by many people in my life for drinking Red Bull. It plays out of my stomach. Um, but yeah, but I take peppermint tablets now, so they're somewhere. They're very good. So yeah, I kind of again I fucking forgotten what I was talking about. So yeah, so I've got this vision. It's in the second journal, the second volume, and I think it's worth reading. It's worth picking up a copy. Again, I would say that, but I've been editing it. I'm just approaching the end of editing it. It's 85,000 words, and I'm just going through it. I'm just sort of catching any typos that have crept, slipped through the net, and it's really exciting for me to go through and to think, my God, it's 20 months worth of my life. The writing, it covered a 12 month period of time, and look at that, the bags, fuck. It covers a 12-month period of time from February um, 16 to February 17. I know that's 13, but it measures out 12 months of actual writing. So it'll be 12 months there, and then it's taken like another sort of 7, 8 months to edit. So it's 20 months of my life that I've dedicated to this second journal, and it's a lot of time and effort has gone into it. Not only writing the pieces to begin with, every day I write every day. I go to work 5 days a week, and I come back and I edit and I write a fresh piece, and then I edit it the next day and I publish it on the blog. And the second journal is 12 months of that, and then I've edited it for another 7, 8 months after, and it's a labor of love. It's intensive. I speak to people that that aren't sort of into writing, and they think I'm mad, and they wouldn't be they wouldn't be wrong. Many people have said that, many women. Um, um, yeah, it's maddening. I mentioned this in a piece I wrote on the blog. When you just write and you write and you edit and you write and you edit and you write, and so much of my time, my life is spent not in the real world. It's in this other world. It's like all these books and CDs and movies and whatever. You're in this kind of, in this creative world, and it's kind of, it's liberating, but at the same time, when you're constantly in it and you're constantly jumping around, 1 minute you're editing, 1 minute you're writing, 1 minute you're expressing yourself, and then you're looking for typos for weeks upon weeks upon weeks upon months. It's draining, and it's, for people looking in on the outside, they just think, well, why would you do that? There are easy, someone said to me, when I said, I'm working on the second journal and I want to do the third journal and a book, and I've got hopefully the anthology by the Sudden, I say Sudden Denouement. I heard Jasper pronounce it as Sudden Denouement. I'm going to say Sudden Denouement. Um, the anthology is there, which is great. I love being a member of the collective, and yeah. So my whole life is dedicated to kind of that, to writing and expressionism, that creative flow. And people are like, well, again, there are easier ways of earning money. So if I wanted to earn money, I would not be a fucking writer. I would work in an office, I would work in a bank. I mean, again, writing is, it's such a part of my life, but it's a ball ache, and every day is like having an existential crisis. It's like having a midlife crisis, because 1 minute you're up in the clouds and you think, wow, I've done this great job of writing and being myself, and then the next minute you think, shit, what am I doing this for? And it's and yeah, so I can't even remember what the question was. um but yeah, so it's very time consuming, and there's a lot of effort that goes into it. And if I could sort of live my life again, I probably wouldn't do it. Because it's such a gamble as well. I was speaking to someone the other year, and someone that I worked with, and they kind of asked me what I wanted to do with my life, and I said writing. I said I don't like calling myself a writer. I guess I am, but I think I only really want to call myself a writer when I've published books and I've really made good money. Then I can kind of, yeah, go, yeah, I'm a writer. Now I guess I'm a struggling writer. But they were kind of saying, well, okay, if you want to be a writer, what's your backup plan? And I said, there is no backup plan. You know, I haven't done this to make money. Obviously, I'd like to make money. Look, I'd like to make money from writing, of course, but it's not about making money. It's about it. It's who I am. It's what I am. Um, and which on one hand is good, um, but on the other hand, it's unpleasant. It's unpleasant because there's no guarantee at the end of it. If you want to be, I'm not going to name a profession because it will sound like I'm knocking a profession, but if you want to be something else, if you want to, if you want a career in X, then you study a course and you take tests and exams, and if you're good enough, you can make it. But if to be a writer, like I guess a painter or a musician, even if you're good enough, there's no guarantee that you'll make it. You might not know the right people. You might be in the wrong place at the wrong time. It's that's what's really frustrating about kind of writing, is the fact that you can be so optimistic about what you do, but there's no guarantee that you'll have success. There's no guarantee that you'll make it. And but again, I think that it's a case of you just do it because it's what you feel like you were born to do. And I think that for years I always wanted to I went to I studied at, I'm losing myself. I studied at uni for 5 years in total, High Wycombe and Reading, and I wanted to be a painter. And I loved the idea of being a painter. I loved creating, I loved putting paint on canvas. And then at the end of when I graduated from Reading Uni, I decided I wanted to be a writer instead. Which there was a link. It was all linked. I'd always used text in my work. I'd always written journals. I had an online journal, um, which on a site called LiveJournal, which a few people that I'm still in contact with know. Jimmy Campkin, my friend of over 20, 23 years. Fuck me. 23 years we had LJs. We still do. I was writing on LJs, and I so that was, it was a natural progression to kind of to express myself through writing as opposed to painting. And then for years I wanted to be I wanted to write this novel, and the novel was called My Red Abyss, which was obviously the name of my blog now. And I spent several years kind of working on and off on this novel, and it was the wrong thing. I should have got myself a WordPress site, and I should have built myself up, written short stories, written poetry, um, written the journals. But I didn't. I thought I'm going to start off and I'm going to write the novel, which is, I think, what? Look at that. I should get like Botox or something. Um, um, so yeah, I thought I'm going to write the novel. It's the equivalent of deciding that you're going to be a musician and then trying to record the White Album as your first album, or trying to make an album and your first album being like Nevermind by Nirvana. It's like it's a stupid thing, but many people do it. You know, they want to be a writer and they think, right, I'm going to write this novel. And it was the wrong decision in hindsight. I spent a lot of years working on the novel, not really having a voice, not being good enough. And then it was sort of late 2013, early 2014 when I got myself a WordPress account, and I called it My Red Abyss. I just thought, well, you know I have a title, so I'll use it. And I just started blogging, and I was still working on the novel at the same time, but I just thought, fuck it, I'm just going to start writing. And now's not the time or place to go into it, but there was, kind of difficulties in my love life, as there always have been, always my own fault, of course. And to kind of try and get some sense of control back, I started writing this stuff on WordPress, on the blog. And it was terrible. For the most part, it was terrible. Not terrible, but it was far too abstract, and I am a dyslexic, and not a big dyslexic, a small dyslexic. If there is, I don't think that's the correct terminology, but yeah, I suffered from dyslexia since my childhood, and so for me, writing, I struggle with words, and in terms of, when people say nouns and pronouns and adjectives and all of that, no idea. I can't grasp it at all. So writing's always been tricky for me, which again makes wanting to be a writer even that more ridiculous. It's like me wanting to be a doctor but being afraid of blood. But anyway, so I started off with writing, and kind of, was in love with someone, and kind of thought, if I can write all this stuff and she can see what my how I feel, then she'll fall in love with me, and go happily, we'll live happily ever after. And so for me, that was the blog really. For the first kind of few months, it was me just kind of writing, trying to kind of prove myself, prove my feelings, prove that I was being sincere with my love. And which I think I've seen a lot of people do on WordPress. I've seen a lot of people start blogs because they thought that they were that they were in a relationship, or they were coming out of one, they were going into one, and so I was no different in that respect. But then gradually the kind of the it didn't work, by the way. But then gradually writing itself took over, and I wasn't writing to try and impress this woman anymore. I was writing for me. I suddenly fell in love with writing. And I had been in love with writing years before, and obviously the creative process with painting. But then for many years, I wasn't in love with what I was doing. I was just doing it because I wanted to write a book. But then, so gradually, I fell in love with writing again. And it was very difficult. And you can see this in the first journal. There's stuff that I write that I think is very poignant and heartfelt, but there's also stuff that is very abstract, and I was struggling to figure everything out. But I feel like I've gone from strength to strength. I feel that I've I find myself in this position now where um, that where I know kind of who I am. I know what I want, and I feel confident with myself, and therefore the writing has really just taken over. And it's weird. I was just thinking about that journey, in a sense of what, nearly approaching 4 years since I got WordPress, for approaching 4 years since I started writing properly, I guess. And it's really odd. It's one of the weird things with writing is that it's, like I said, it's a labor of love, and it can feel frustrating at times, because you kind of, when I first started writing, I felt like I had all of these ideas, and I knew that I could do it. But it's difficult because I wasn't talented enough at the time, and other people would kind of, I knew, would look at my writing and think, well, don't do it, it's not good enough. But I always knew that I could do it. But it's just, yeah, it's it's frustrating. Again, I've lost my train of thought. I do this all the time. It's awful, especially when I'm talking to people, and then I just suddenly, my eyes glaze over, and I suddenly forget what I'm doing. And when people can see it, people can look at me and they can just go, "I've lost him. He's gone again." Um, so yeah, it's a fantastic journey to kind of, to really sort of to think about where you come from, and how far you go. And I think for years I wanted to work on the novel. I wanted to publish the novel, and I never really kind of appreciated that you need to struggle, that you need to put the hard graft in, that you need to just buckle down and get on with it. I kind of wanted the success, you know, I wanted to have the novel out there, and I wanted to kind of say, wow, I'm a published author, and I wanted the book on bookshelves, and I wanted the film adaptation. I wanted all of that, like I think most people do. But I kind of just thought stupidly, naively, that I could just have that straight away. I thought that I could have just achieved that straight away, which is horrific now. It's deeply embarrassing. Um, but again, I sort of learned the hard way, and I think sometimes you need to do that. Sometimes you need to experience, you know, the struggle, because I think it makes you, you know, when I decided that I wanted to be a writer, I was uh, I was in my mid 20s, and I'm 33 now, which is old. If I was a footballer, I'd be very old. But as a writer, 33, I think I'm good. That's what I keep telling myself. I'm young. I'm still young. Um, but yeah, so I think that, you know, like many people, you just think that you can have that success and that achievement and quit the day job. But I think that you need to struggle. I think that you need to suffer. You need to fail. I think that's, I think, one of the is quite a liberating thing for me. Like I said, I when I go back and I think about when I first started writing, and I was in love with this woman and I wanted to woo her, and I think, what happens if it had worked? What happens if she had just said, okay, yeah, let's be together forever? Then what would have happened with my writing? Would I have given up? Would I have? I don't know. I think for a long time I just kind of, like many people, make that mistake of just wanting everything to happen immediately. And I didn't want the struggle, but I think I didn't. But you have to embrace the struggle. You have to embrace failure. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to embrace failure for the rest of my life. I want to get to a stage where I can kind of I have some sort of form of success. But I think that, yeah, you have to embrace failure. I think you have to be sort of knocked down. I think, and because I think it makes you want it that little bit more. Um, and I think that some people kind of there was an orb, a ghost. Some people kind of taste that failure, and then they give up and they think, it's not for me. I don't want it enough. But for me, I always knew that I wanted it, and even though I didn't really have a game plan, I still really don't. Um, I kind of want it. I want this, and I think that therefore it doesn't matter how long it takes. It doesn't matter the failures, the struggles. I think just bring it, you know. Um, but it's definitely an interesting journey, and like I say, I touched on that in the second journal. It's those highs and lows, and going back and looking over the years and thinking about when I was very young and naive and thought that, you know, I was on top of the world and I'd get writing done like that. And of course, I look back now and I think, oh God. But again, it's all part and parcel of the journey of those footsteps, and it's it makes it all worthwhile. I really do think that it makes it all worthwhile. I went into this journal, fuck. I went into this video with no structure in mind, apart from just talking about the second journal. So forgive me if if I if I've gone on and babbled. It's quite weird because I'm quite a misanthropist. I've learned that word from when I was reading one of my favorite books, Wuthering Heights. I'm not a keen fan of people. People annoy me. Um, some people are okay. I like some people. They're good. But a lot of people annoy me. But it's weird. I can be quite a talker. But then I tend to sort of go. Sometimes I'll talk a lot, and then sometimes I won't. It's kind of like writing, you know. Sometimes I sit down and writing just kind of comes out, and then other times it doesn't. Um, but hey, hey. One of the things was quite interesting in terms of writing, um, and it's something I approach with the second journal. Not necessarily all the time in the first journal. It was something that I kind of learned part way through it, and it's kind of in terms of like in terms of what kind of at what point did I suddenly start to find my voice? At what point did like I mentioned at the end of the first journal, I suddenly felt like I was getting somewhere. What happened at that point? You know, part of it is just that you write every day, you read every day, and you just strive to improve. The other part of it was, um, I look old. I am old, but uh, well, one, but apart from sort of obviously putting in all the effort and all the rest of it, is for me, it was about, I guess you can call it having a muse. You can, and I was reading a book that Stephen King wrote called, I think it's On Writing, and in it he says how when he writes, he always writes with his wife in mind. So he always thinks about his wife, kind of what her reaction will be when she reads his words. And I always do the same. I don't think about Stephen King's wife. That would just be very bad. I don't know what she looks like, but I always think of someone. I have my muse. I won't mention their name because that would be telling. But I always have my muse. I always imagine what this one person would think if they read my words, and that has been the biggest single thing really that has had an impact on my writing, you know, is just to focus on that one person when you write, and to kind of think, could I make them feel like this with this piece of writing? Could I make them feel like that? Could I shock them with this? Could I please them with that? And I think when I started to employ that technique, suddenly every time I sat down to write, the level of the depth to it just improved. I just felt that I was onto something, because I wasn't just sitting down thinking, which I'd done a lot of the time, especially with the first journal with the abstract stuff. Need a shave as well. I was sitting down and I was just kind of thinking, what can I write about? And I would write stuff, and sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't. When I sat down thinking, right, this person is going to read what I have to write, that revolutionized everything. And it's stupid because I'd done that in the past, but for some reason I'd lost sight of it. And when I incorporated it again into my writing, it had such a massive effect. And again, for me, writing is, it's for every time I sit down and write, it's like writing a love letter to this person. I don't want to turn this into a gushiness, but and so therefore when I write, it is personal. I'm not writing for someone I've never met, or anything like that. I'm not writing to impress. I'm just writing with this one person in mind, trying to think, can I get them to smile? Can I get them to, obviously I'm writing for me. I'm not, you know, I want to make that clear. I write for me. I write because it's what I like doing and what I enjoy. But in terms of trying to take it up to that next level, to try and always make sure that what I write has got that depth to it, has got that something to it, I incorporate the muse. That helps it no end, because I think that sometimes you can. Sometimes now I will sit down and I will be in my zone and I'll write something, and I'll be completely in the zone. I'll be completely in the creative process, and I'll step out of it and I'll edit it and I think, boom, fantastic. And then when I think about the muse, I suddenly think, it's missing that something. Um, so yeah, I thought I'd just drop that in there because again, I think that was a real big thing for me. Um, and again, I employed that for a long time in the journal. It was really sort of I'm holding on to the edge of a table just here. I'm not patting someone on the head. Um, so yeah, I incorporated that for a long time, and it's there in the second journal, and yeah, I feel like I said, bringing it back to the second journal. I'm really pleased with it. I feel like it does something. There's stuff in there that I would, in hindsight, change. There are pieces that I have gone through in the editing process and have sort of thought, I, now I don't feel like that anymore. But again, it is what it is. It's those continuing sort of footsteps, and they're there. You know, it's part of that journey. Um, and so yeah, that's it. That's it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I can touch upon. I've got cramp in my leg. Um, there is other stuff. Um, I might make another video. It depends how disastrous this one is. I don't know how to edit stuff or anything. Um, I just sort of thought I would write something because again, it's what popular people do. I still don't like this. Next time, I'm gonna get a video, like professional lighting, and I'm gonna get rid of the wrinkles on the top. I'll have no, I won't have a shave, but I'll kind of do something, and then I'll get rid of the lines. See, look at that. See, they'll look cool. Then it goes back to normal. So if I just do side profile, sort of go for the Van Gogh, I look a little bit better. Whereas there, yeah. So from now on, side profile, I look better, like a pretentious twat. Um, but yeah, so I think it's one of those things that I kind of go through this stuff in my head every day. Literally every day, I go through this stuff in my head, um, thinking about the process, where I'm going, where I've been, what I'm writing, what I'm going to write tomorrow, what I've edited. You know, the quote that I'm going to put on Instagram, what I've shared on Facebook. It's kind of non-stop, and it's draining. You know, the last time I went a week without writing was rapidly approaching 2.5 years ago. Um, I think in the past 2.5 years, there's been the odd day here and there that I haven't done any writing. But even then, if I've gone out, I I'll make sure I do a bit of editing beforehand. I'll schedule something. So it's a job. It's 24/7 writing, you know. And like I said, there are moments when I'll put a blog up. I'll finish a blog when I've got the first journal out, hopefully when I get the second journal out. There are those moments that make it worthwhile. And when you're opening all these doors, it's a wonderful feeling to it's a wonderful feeling to have, you know, to do what you love and to just invest so much time in it. It really is incredible. And to do it not because, like I said, I'm in it for the money, but because this is what I do. That makes me feel very proud. Um, Again, I've lost my trail of thought. I don't know what my point was. Um, but yeah, but the downside of it is just that it is so labor intensive. Like, um, it's just continuous, and it it drains the fuck out of me. And it's like, even if I have a day off, or even if I have an afternoon off, um, there's I can play on my computer games, but even then I'm in between sort of editing, and then I'm looking at the blog. So if I was to sort of look at a day in the life of, it's not particularly, I guess, that different from many writers, but it might be interesting to some. Um, I you know if I go to work, I'll go in the morning, I'll finish in the afternoon, I get back, I reblog a piece, I'll reblog the piece that I wrote and published the previous night on the blog, and then I will edit for a few hours on and off the piece that I wrote at the very end of the previous night, and then I will try and publish that for about 7 o'clock English time, London time, Greenwich Mean Time. And then at the same time, I'll reblog the other piece for a second time, and then I'll publish the piece on the blog, the fresh piece on the blog, and then I'll get a screenshot of that and put it on Instagram. I'll also try and put a few other bits on Instagram, like, photos, and quotes. And then I write again a new piece in the evening, which I'll then edit the next day after. And then on top of that, I'm editing the journal, and I've been doing that for the past 7 months. And then once this second journal's done, I might sort of just strip it back a bit, um, to just the blog, but then I'll probably pick up the novel again for a little bit, and then I'll work on the third journal. And I try and I'm terrible when it comes to messaging people and emailing. But again, it's just that thing. It's just because it's non-stop writing, sort of. It's just, yeah. I mean, I'm sort of like lost in my head anyway, at the best of times, let alone sort of since writing has taken over. It's yeah, I'm a scatterbrain. I think I get it from my granddad. My granddad was it's my mum's dad. She he sorry was the one that got me into writing, and yeah, he died a couple of years ago. He died in 2014, but at the very end of 2014. But he was the one that got me into writing when I was a kid. He was the one that, because like I said, I was dyslexic. I didn't like reading. I didn't like writing. Couldn't write. And he would take me to the library and he would let me get these books out, and he'd fill my head with ghost stories. And yeah, he was the one that started me off, and it's a fascinating journey. Um, to think about. I lost my train of thought again. I'm terrible. But yeah, so I got I get that from him. I remember he was always into his books and into ghost stories and that, but he was a scatterbrain, and I get that from him. Um, I'm very bad with my memory. I have kind of selective memory, but at the same time, I I people say stuff to me and I just forget it, and but then I remember really weird stuff from the past, routines from years ago, down to the T, or the little whatever. But I think that's just part of my makeup, I guess. It's a hindrance when I forget birthdays, and I forget to message people, and 5 months go past and then I think, oh shit. um, but then at the same time, it's kind of helps me with writing, because I think that it allows me to jump around. It allows me to see the things that I see. That sounds pretentious, but and it allows me to capture certain thoughts and ideas that potentially, others couldn't. Um, yeah, it is fascinating. You see these books. That's a book. That's the Diary of Kenneth Williams from the Carry On films. You've got Stephen King books. That one I think is Rant by Chuck Palahniuk, which is very good. Um, Music. That one is a book on Jackson Pollock. You've got J.G. Ballard there, Dexter, Stephen King, Dark Tower. There's a dictionary there, mental. Um, there's Stephen King's It. I haven't seen the new film because I don't like violence in films. I won't accept it, and I won't tolerate it. Donna Tartt up there, a bit rude. There's a nice version of Dracula I've got. I should have one of those sticks. I look quite professional. There's movies here. Um, there's Red Dwarf. There's The Mighty Boosh. Eels. There's other stuff. We do that. So yeah, I'm pleased that I've done this. I probably won't even air this. I'll probably just delete it. I don't like my voice. I think I have a terrible voice. It's not very masculine. It's not very manly. Um, and like I said, professional lighting next time. I look dreadful. I look really haggard. I think it is the lighting. See, look, if I stood, oh, no. So yeah, but then again, I think I'm a writer. I can say that it's the booze, the late nights writing. Bukowski looked like a turd, and he's a god to me. So fuck it, I'll just accept looking like trash. But yeah, so yeah, I think Bukowski is one of my big favorites. Weirdly enough, I've never been as into his poetry. I've always been more of a fan of his prose, of his books. There are a few Bukowski books around. I think they're sort of down there somewhere. Um, but yeah, Bukowski's a hero of mine. Um, I'm also into true crime books. Um, I'm one of those people that have an interest in serial killers. I'm the not that I go to parties, not now. Maybe in my younger time, but now I don't like people, so I tend to shy away from that shit. But I'm one of those people that would go to a party, and if I heard someone talk about a serial killer, I'd be over there like a shot. But I love reading about them just because I think that it's that kind of it's being on the outside. It's I think that writers and artists and musicians are all, well, the good ones are on the outside, and I think serial killers, actually I don't condone murdering, um but I think that it's always fascinating when you see how these people operate, and them being on the outside of society, and you look at what made them tick and why they did what they do. I'm reading a book at the minute, on Mary Bell, called Cries Unheard, um, which Mary Bell was a little girl. I think she was 11. She killed two children in the late 60s in Newcastle. I think, is it Newcastle? I think it was Newcastle. She killed, and she was only 11, and she killed these two kids. And very fascinating. As I've read a few more books this year on Ian Brady and Myra Hindley. Brady, of course, died a couple of months ago. He's a very fascinating character. Terrible human being, of course. He murdered 5 children, and he buried 4 of them on Saddleworth Moor in Manchester. And one of them, little Keith Bennett, has never been found. Terrible human being, but a very fascinating mind. Again, I say I'm drawn to irregular heads. I'm drawn to those that are on the outside. Syd Barrett, Nick Drake, in music, Richie Edwards, um, idols. I'm not just going to list names, but so yeah, I'm a massive fan of true crime books. I say the Mary Bell books, the Moors Murderers books. There's loads of these books are on. That one's a true crime book. That one's called The Monster in Florence, which is I think there's a movie coming out of it. I think that George Clooney was involved in it. There's some Anne Rule books down here. The Stranger Beside Me, about Ted Bundy, was fascinating. Um, Ted Bundy is one of my favorite serial killers. That sounds mental. He's not but I like reading about people, like I said. Um, but yeah, so again, like I said, Bukowski is a god, and then you've got all these other sort of authors and writers underneath. Um, Films. I like films. I Most of the time, if I watch a film, I'll just put it on in the background, and I'll kind of do some writing and sort of glance up at the film every so often. Um, Big Fish. I was thinking about this earlier. Big Fish is one of my favorite films. I know it's based on a book, but I've never read the book. But Big Fish was directed by Tim Burton, and had a massive, profound effect on me when I first saw it. Like Donnie Darko, that was a really fascinating film. I have that up there. It's the 4K version. Um, but yeah, Donnie Darko, Big Fish, Eternal Sunshine, 2001: Space Odyssey, Magnolia is a film that I like. Lots of different things that have influenced me, and in many ways that they go into the second journal. Let's bring it back to the second journal, because otherwise I'll just end up talking about fucking tea bags and weird random shit like that. I do talk about weird stuff. For anyone that knows me, that anyone that has met me in real life, I can be quite odd. I think now that writing allows me to be odd, I think that's the great thing with writing, is that if I'm odd, if I'm weird, um, I can say, look, I'm a writer. I can do this shit. This shit is what I do. Um, but yeah, I can talk about weird stuff. I like creating scenarios. I won't go into that because it's could be quite unpleasant. So yeah, the second journal, I'll round it up. I've been talking for 55 minutes. Fuck. Utter. Yeah. So yeah, the second journal, end of October, I think. I'm in the process of editing. I get it edited. Um, I get the cover sorted, the front cover sorted, but I just need to edit the back cover. Hopefully it gets accepted. I get the proof copy. Um, if the proof is okay, I think it should be. The first one went fine. Then I can make it available for publication. It will be on in paperback for like £8 or something on Amazon. .co.uk.com and all the other ones, and it'll be on Kindle as well. And it's yeah, I'm really pleased with the journey, but that's where I'm at right now. Um, Hopefully, what I don't even know what the day is, the 3rd of October, as I'm saying this. Um, so yeah, hopefully maybe about 20 days. Fuck, it's not long. But yeah, I can get it done, and then yeah, my vision, my truth will be available. Um, my second truth will be available to read, and I'm pleased with it. I think it's I'm very proud of what I've done and what I've achieved. I think that I could go into it again. I could do another video in terms of motivations, in terms of influences, and I just thought I'd riff this. I when I was at uni, when I had to give a talk or anything, I never used to do make notes. I just used to turn up and riff. And again, if someone criticised me, I'd say I'm an artist. Fuck you. um, but yeah, so I hope you've enjoyed this video. I might put it up. I might not. It. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm surprised that I've made it this far. To be honest, I've no clue what I'm doing in terms of technology. It took me half an hour to find the fucking camcorder on the laptop. I didn't know where it was. I've never had any use for it. I'm not a pervert. I don't go on dirty sites. Well, um, and so yeah, so I've got it. I might even not even be able to put on the whole hour. I might have to break it up into chunks, which will be tedious for everyone involved. But we'll wait and see. I've got to talk for another hour and fuck, another 1 minute and 30 seconds. I was born in July. I had a cat once called Polo. Um, and I had a dog, Monty. I used to like Monty. If there is a heaven, if I go up there and Monty's not there, I'll leave straight away. Send me to hell. Um, yeah, I think I'd be nice to write another one about in terms of motivations, in terms of where I draw imagery from. Because just mentioning animals. Um, I mentioned the animals. You know, the animals. I'm gonna stop saying that word. I mention them quite a lot in my work. So yeah, maybe I'll do that. I'll make another video in terms of where I draw my kind of inspiration and symbolism from. If I actually bother to make notes, as opposed to this, where I had some toast, 30 seconds. I had some toast, and then I thought I'm gonna talk for a bit. So yeah, it's SK Nicholas. It's Stephen Carr Nicholas. uh, but SK, whatever. I hope you've enjoyed this. Buy the second journal. I might sign copies and then put it onto, you know, you can. Well, I've spoke. So I said I spoke too much, and now I'm tired. I'm going to sit down. See ya.